What is up, everyone? DJ Nubis here with you on the Metal Time Radio podcast with another Kaiju Spotlight here with my good friend and fellow Kaiju fanatic, Jake Hall. Thank you for being here, sir.
Hello there, and thank you for having me.
And today we get to talk about a Kaiju, although in some circles it's not really considered a Kaiju. We'll talk a little bit about that. But personally, when I keep thinking about his size compared to humans and whatnot, and the original Kong, he seems almost about the same size. And obviously, Legendary's King Kong is much, much larger. But we're talking about, of course, Daimajin from Deo. And, this was a creature movies that I'd seen. There was a trilogy of movies that were done in 1966, all shot at the same time. Now, I didn't really know that at the time. I just saw like one film and I was like, this is the coolest shit ever. Like, I couldn't believe it. And even back then, because of the way that it's shot, now it's shot a little bit more of like, from almost like a historical standpoint, but we just added in this spiritual god into the mix. So it's a little bit different than you would get from like, a Godzilla film or even a Gamera and so on. What was your first experience with this particular kaiju?
Well, my first experience when I was like yay high, I saw the first one on TV, and for the life of me, I couldn't remember. For many years, I couldn't remember what the name of this film was or whatnot. It had always been stuck in my head. It wasn't until I got like the DVD pack of the trilogy is when I was like, this was the film that I remembered from so long ago. And I think the US title was Majin Monster of something. Or I can't
Like an
remember.
idol, yeah.
Yeah. And when I first watched it, it was on TV, but when I first watched it in its original version, the Japanese version, I was like, oh my God, this was such a beautiful movie. And for its time period and practical effects, I was just like, chef's kiss. I mean, you have samurais, you're dealing with a battle between evil emperors and all of that, and then you have certain people that are trying to pray to this god for help, and the only way to get this god is by making some sort of sacrifice. And I like how in the first one they're sitting here, the evil emperor, cast out, but then the children that are supposed to run the empire are safe in the mountains, and you have the princess who's keeping guard and watched, and she makes a prayer. It's like, I'll sacrifice myself if you help save my brother and our guardian. And little boy, I think his name was like Taki Taki, which was a funny name, trying to prevent her from sacrificing. And then, you know, nothing happens, and the mountain starts shaking. And then my favorite part of the movie is when he appears and the music plays. I love his main entrance. I always love that entrance theme. Dun dun dun
Yep.
dun dun dun, dun. And then he just does the changing of the face. And I like how they were trying to destroy this statue with the little spike, and then all of a sudden, one of the it's like, the hell? Oh, the statue was bleeding, and all of a sudden the ground cracks, and they just disappeared. All of them died. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
that's the thing, right? So like you growing up when I'd seen this as a kid, uh, I couldn't remember the name of the movie. So like I remember the character of Daimajin, but not the name. And so like, and at the time I was watching other movies like Godzilla and Jason and the Argonauts and stuff like that. So I'd seen all these other like monster movies because that was really the big thing for me in the 70s was to kind of catch all these films. And but like you said, this one kind of gets lost in the rubble with a lot of the other stuff that's out there. And then I don't own the trilogy like you do. I should, but I don't. But I think once two became along and stuff like that, then I was like trying to search it out for like kaiju. So you get these recommendations, and then boom, there it is. And I'm like, that's what it is. That's the one I remember. But I didn't even realize it had two other films at the time. So obviously, we're seeing the first one. But anyway, Daimajin is a giant ancient stone warrior god that awakens to punish the wicked, oppressive warlords during Japan's Warring States era, serving as a savior to the oppressed villagers while acting as an unstoppable force of nature. The trilogy was done in 1966 with Daimajin, Return of Daimajin, and Wrath of Daimajin. And they were all shot simultaneously, which apparently was good and bad for Daiei, which I guess they lost some money when it came to that because they put everything into that series, that trilogy. So that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen anything since then. But again, he's not inherently evil. And we say this a lot because Godzilla goes through these different phases. He'll sometimes be a villain, sometimes be an anti-hero, and then sometimes just be a hero. But Daimajin is just one that he's more of like anti-hero, but he's not. He can be indiscriminate when it comes to his wrath. It could just fall upon anybody.
Yeah, you can basically say he's kind of like the MonsterVerse Godzilla. He brings balance to everything because he's not evil, but yeah, he's not good because he will destroy, even though he's after the villain or the evil ruler, whoever it is. And it's funny too because whether you have, because there's like multiple versions of this. You have the Arrow trilogy pack. You have a regular trilogy pack that's Blu-ray, and then you have the DVD. And what's funny with the DVD is the last two movies, which is kind of funny because depending on which one you would own, if you have the DVD, the Wrath of Daimajin would be the one where he comes back from the lake from that island. But if you own the Blu-ray, it's the one where they're in the snowy mountains and stuff. That's the Wrath. But y'all could find that like on Amazon probably to purchase. Just type it in and all that if anyone is interested in owning these films and all that.
I
So
did like that you also mentioned that when it comes to him, and you have these villagers and people that worship him as a god, he sits usually like against a mountaintop or whatever, and just you see his face usually, and it's not the one that is exposed. It's just like stone.
yeah,
But
he's
you mentioned how like a lot of times whenever these villagers are under attack and being hurt by these samurai warlords, that it takes a sacrifice to get him to kind of come out of it. Like the way that these films work is like it's a very slow burn. So you're kind of going through these issues where the warlords are really kind of like tormenting a lot of these people, and then it just really once somebody makes that sacrifice. So like you talked about the snowy mountains where the one kid like falls to his death.
yeah,
Basically awaken him at that time, and then you have the girl, which is one of my favorite moments, is on the cross, and she's begging for him to come save her rest of her clan and her people. So it's interesting how, unlike some of the other kaiju stuff that we've seen with Gamma or whatever, this one specifically needs a sacrifice, as you said, to kind of get him to come out of his basically a blood sacrifice to come out and actually do his wrath, which I thought was very interesting about his character.
Yeah, and it's funny because each of the states where he's just in his normal state, like two of the films, he's in a mountain, trapped in the rocks, and the other one, he's just like the center of attention, surrounded by rocks, like he's just in them. And it does take a sacrifice or whatnot, and however it happens, like in the last or in the one where he's on the island, the bad guys end up blowing him up into millions of pieces. And then after the girl made her sacrifice, he's reformed under the water. And that's when you, jun, 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 and then transforms. And then everybody's like, ah. And then he parts the water like Moses did in the Bible. And he just starts walking, and every time you walk, you hear the
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh man, it's just whoa.
And the other thing is too is the one thing I do like is along with the music and whenever he's kind of like coming alive, there's always the bell. The bell is fucking cool. I like the bell. It always sends like a signal to that he's either going to be awakened or going back to sleep. I really love that aspect about that as well.
Yeah, kind of almost like the Undertaker's gong. It's like
Yeah.
he's coming. Oh no,
The
the
dead
dead
man
man
arises.
arrives. Oh man, but yeah, that is one thing I liked about the second film, which oddly enough, that is the second film where he's on the island and comes resurrected in the water. Uh, the keeper of the island on, I guess they called it Daimajin Island, I think. I
Yeah.
don't, it's been a while, and basically he just rings the bell, and then the evil guys just knock the bell over, destroy it in the water. But yet, after he completes his task and fades away in the water, you hear the gong,
Yeah.
gong, and they're
See,
like,
and if that happened to me, I would shit myself. Like, okay, we did something wrong here.
and it'd be like somebody be like saying, "Oh, he ain't gone." Beep.
Now, I found this interesting because I did not know this. Now, obviously, I knew that Daimajin was part of Daiei, which they have a select. Basically, their two biggest products are Daimajin and Gamera.
Yeah.
I did not know that initially Daimajin was supposed to be a foe for Gamera. He was originally created for that. From what they say, Daimajin was originally designed to be the first foe of Gamera, and the concept developed into both Daimajin and Baragon, appearing in the 1966 film Gamera vs. Baragon. The filmmakers were also inspired by Jotun from the Norse mythology, the giant of the snows from the 1912 film Conquest of the Pole. So I think, wow, that's pretty insane that he was supposed to be a foe. But now it's kind of interesting because when we look at him now, because of his history now with, the Japanese people, is that, again, he's actually anti-hero, but he's more for sticking up for the oppressed. And that's basically what Gamera does too. Gamera is also one that's what would you call Earth Defender.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, how he would have been as a villain. Like, would they have given him more special powers, or what would they would have done? Because he doesn't have anything crazy. You did mention the breaking of the water. I think he actually can manipulate the wind and the weather,
And he
but
has a
outside of
sword.
it, yeah. Yeah, so but it's not like it has like flames or anything on it or anything crazy. Like, he can wield it and do some crazy shit, but not in the way that we see like Gamma or Godzilla or anybody like that. So,
Mhm.
but I thought that was interesting. Did you even know that about him being a foe for Gamma?
This is the first time I've heard about this. I mean, that would be that would have been an interesting movie, having a stone statue guardian versus an actual guardian of the universe. two forces meet. I honestly, I don't see who would have won because Gamera can get cut real easily, even
Hmm.
with the hard shell. And even if you try to crumble Daimajin or do whatever to him, he would just in a way regenerate back in stone form. So in a way, I don't see how that story could have worked unless they came up with a script to where it's like they battle and then fought something else in a
Yeah,
way.
that makes you wonder, like, what their original plan was in terms of his abilities and stuff like that, or what even his concept would have been, like, just an evil samurai or whatever. But I did find that to be very interesting. Um, Now, here's something that I also found also interesting. So, obviously, I think it was in 2006, Takeshi Miike, who did Ichi the Killer, did his updated version of Gamera the Brave. Um, that didn't do that well. And we talked about that when we did our Gamera special on Kevin's channel,
Yeah.
where that particular film doesn't really resonate with me. I know what Takeshi was going after because he wanted to bring back that fun kid interaction with Gamera and stuff like that, but it kind of fails in comparison to the Heisei stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so, but apparently, like, he wanted to kind of reboot Daimajin, and I would have really liked to see that because he's one of those directors that doesn't mind going like the hard R. Like, it would have been close to what Heisei did in terms of just like the more adult themed.
Yeah.
Um, are you familiar with Takeshi Miike at all?
Oh yeah, I own a few of his films.
So, what would you like to see with him if he had actually been able to get that to work with Daimajin? What would you have liked to see with that?
You know what? Kind of make it a little darker. Still keep the premise of how some the most of the stories like in the original trilogy
The plot design, yeah,
plot design, but kind of if he was to do another trilogy, like tweak each story a little bit, not make it the same story as
yes,
they did with the trilogy, because in the original trilogy it was basically the same story but
yep,
in different elements,
yep,
like in different elements of the story. Now if he was to do another trilogy, or back then if he was going to do that, like not only in different elements but in different like parts or different
yeah.
sections.
You could have easily. Like, that's such a good point because you could have easily taken that original trilogy and really just taken out different parts of him and made one particular movie that included all like the best parts of all three films because they are all kind of fall in a similar set and in the story plot line. It just changes the characters a little bit. But and I think that's one reason why they really struggle with Daimajin as far as like getting a bigger audience because it just if you were to literally go and watch Wrath or the second film, you'd be like, oh, okay. And then you watch the first one, like, well, didn't I just watch this? Like you wouldn't
Yeah,
be able to really tell much difference with the stories.
and also too, I think instead of it just being Daimajin alone, and there's one thing I'll mention later on, but like if he was to do another set of trilogy, instead of it being him by himself, like have him fight like a creature or something like in the next story, which in a way it did happen, but in a TV series,
Yeah, I didn't
which
get to see that.
I actually saw most of it. There was one episode that I missed, but it was called Daimajin Cannon, I think is what it was
Yep.
called. And he fights this like long neck spirit guy. It was an interesting, and what's really interesting is that this Daimajin, different design and all, much bulkier, but it actually had a voice and it would sing.
Oh,
So yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm not narking on the series or anything. It was a interesting series. It's been a long time since I've watched it. I don't know if it's still available on YouTube or not, or if they plan on releasing it. But it was an interesting series. I thought it was good. You don't see Daimajin in action until like the final 3 or 2 episodes. So it was
Which is
pretty,
pretty much what they do in the films too, because
pretty
again,
much.
films are like slow burns. You just kind of build your characters, your tension and everything. Then of course, within the last 10 to 15, 20 minutes is when Daimajin comes alive and does his shit. Um, trying to think of, well, why do you think though at this point they haven't really tried to redo anything? Because obviously they've tried to, Dai has tried to like bring Gamera back a little bit, and they've toyed with other ideas. Why do you think they're just not doing anything with Daimajin at this point?
I it possibly could be popularity. It could be how the films did. I mean, it could be a number of things, but honestly, I think Daimajin has somewhat of a cult following. I mean, the films stood the test of times, and I mean they're still good to this day. Um, they it could be a number of reasons, but honestly, if they could just take the leap of faith and just try to maybe redo the story. I mean, just kind of keep it in a similar way, but tweak it just a little bit. Like maybe have him come in a little sooner than almost towards the end of the film, because in each of the film he doesn't show up until like have full action of him until towards the end. Like
Yeah, that's a good point. One of the things like Takeshi Miike said was for him, some of the trouble is because, again, Daimajin is kind of a smaller type of kaiju. And so his issue was how do you make Daimajin larger or larger than life, like compared to that. And to me, that's really kind of like a bad excuse because they did that with Kong. They were able to bring Kong back later through a MonsterVerse and make him much larger than previously. Also, as you said, the stories need to kind of be the same, but yet at the same time, you have to kind of find a way to mix it up. So I think also in some ways, since Daimajin is like this god, spirit god who rests peacefully for most of his time, if we're going to lead up to his big awakening, why not use him kind of like you would like almost like a pharaoh and have like other things around him happen? So let's, when it comes to like if you saw the Mummy films,
yeah.
the scare beetles or something, have something happen throughout the movie that isn't really Daimajin waking up yet, but there's stuff that's a part of him that happens, and it kind of gives you like that more darker, scarier vibe about the other parts of him that are spiritual but control nature around us. But you have to make it to where it's interesting, to where we're kind of building up to the big reveal, and that to me would be great if they could do that. But Dai has just been dragging their feet so long, and it's been tough because even with the Gamera stuff, it's like they want to give you a little bit, but they just don't want to go all in.
Yeah, I mean, and two, I mean, in a way, also too, if they really could, like in the Ultramans or something, instead of a sacrifice, have an individual, whether it's pure heart or whatever, whoever is worthy enough, have like a device or some type of symbol or a necklace, whatever, to summon the Daimajin. Like if say an evil ruler is too evil and they feel like that they can't stop him, they need something and one individual holds up like certain something and either yells out or does an incantation and summons the Daimajin. I think that would kind of work in a way.
Well, yeah, because I mean, Gamera, at least in the the Heisei series, and they might have done it before that, where they had at least one person that has like a connection to Gamera.
Yeah,
So, I mean, you can do it. Like they've done it before, so that's actually a great idea. Like whether it's a pendant or a bracelet or something that just would attach or connect that person with the mythology of Daimajin and have them
yeah,
awaken when they're in trouble. And that's a great example because Ultraman, I think, has also been mentioned in some of the comics with Daimajin occasionally. So they've tried things in the comics and in that TV series you talked about where they changed up his abilities and stuff with them talking and singing, which I don't. I like the silent version of Daimajin personally,
yeah.
but it just makes him more menacing and just the way that he handles his business. But
And he also made another appearance in a movie, Guardians Battle of uh something. I know I got it somewhere.
yeah, I think it's called
I think it's on my other shelf, but yeah,
the Great Yokai War Guardians.
yes, that's it. Yeah, because it's got his mug on the front and all that. And it's interesting because he already has a face, but he has another face where, like, if he's in trouble, he'll change and it'll be like a little, like a scare face when he's in trouble. It's like, and then when he's real angry, it's like, "Rrrr." But
Really?
it was a good film. I'm not gonna lie. That yo,
Is that like live action or is that just like animation?
no, it's a live action.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's a live action film. I got it from oh good lord, what is the name of the company? Because I just ordered a film from there. Uh oh my god, my mind just went blank. Dang it.
Well, I'm
Uh
sure you'll think of it.
oh, the people that brought the Rega and versus Oga and those films. That
Okay,
company. They're bringing it, and they also did Hal from the Hollow Mountain. It's that company.
gotcha. So if they would, again, obviously Dai would have to kind of give rights out to do this, but would you like to see like maybe Legendary or even at this point Toho try to finagle a way to bring their own versions of Daimajin to the big screen?
Yes, I actually would. Either one. I think, in my opinion, Toho would probably do a little bit better job.
Yeah,
That's just me. That's just my opinion.
especially with the story. The story would be much
Oh yeah.
stronger.
I mean, I think they would do a good job. I mean, Legendary would probably do a decent job if they were to try to handle it, but I think Toho would do a much better job with the story and all that. Uh, like I said, Die has kind of been hit or miss. I mean, don't get me wrong; they've brought out some amazing content over the
Mhm.
years, but their biggest issue is that they don't take a leap of faith or any of that, and they're unlike Toho and other companies, they take risks and chances, but they need to step it up. I
Well,
mean,
we talked about this, long ago about how, like, my biggest dream technically would be for what's going on with -1 because we have -0 coming up soon this year. I would love to see that third film feature Godzilla and Gamera,
oh yeah,
but and Dai though, just because it's always about like how they want Gamera to be either stronger or better than Godzilla. But the reality is that particular set of movies, depending on what the director of -1 does with the second film, Godzilla is the villain. So if you're going to keep that, that makes a perfect setup for Gamera to be the good guy. And we know
exactly.
that, and we know that Toho that they will never let Godzilla die anyway. So just like -1 ended, you know, you got the reformation. It's really kind of the best of both worlds, and really Daiei is kind of missing the opportunity to make themselves more money. Like, you know, they really would if they actually took that leap of faith that you're talking about, because if they try to do it on their own, people will go see it, but it won't be the same if, you know, they try to mix it up with Toho. And I kind of wish they would get off their soapbox and just start working with Toho a little bit on that.
Well, yeah, because I mean, Toho actually helped them with the Gamera trilogy because at the beginning of the Heisei trilogy and each of the films, you see the Toho symbol before you
Yeah.
see the Daiei film. So they've worked together with that. So it's like, yeah, I mean, how hard is it to do it? I know it's about honor too, you know,
Mm-hmm.
with each of the characters, but you also got to consider, and don't get me wrong, I'm not disrespecting on their honor or anything of that, but you also got to respect what the fans have been wanting for many of years. I mean, whether depending on what character they've been wanting to see, like Daniel, for example, he wants to see Veron back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And hey, I want to see him back too, you know, upgrade him just a little bit instead of having the little notch on his nose, like redesign his face and actually have him have a special ability, you know, still keep the gliding, you know, form, but just have that. And, you know, like Kevin said when we were talking about the Gamera franchise celebrating his 60th, you know, it is about the honor and respect, and you know, they won't want any of the kaiju to die. So, you know, but like you said, in the -0, oh, that's a beautiful shot.
Mm.
That's beautiful right there. I like that. But I mean, you know, if they could do it, considering Godzilla is the villain right now,
Mm-hmm.
since not since I guess you could say 1954 when he was the villain, or 84,
Yeah.
you could say. You know, right now he's a villain right now, and if Yamazaki continues this path and if he does do the third film, you know, bring Gamera in. I mean, take the leap of faith, have the discussion, you know, do
Yeah.
that.
If -0 is anything close to how good -1 was, then I'd be very confident that Yamazaki would bring a Gamera Godzilla film to like be very good. Like it'd be very good both in writing, human story, as well as the monster effects. So again, depends on what -0 does. Like I've heard, you know, like it's gonna be really good, but it's just hard to say right now. But
Well,
either way,
until we see a trailer, I mean, you know,
right? Yeah, but obviously -1 was like one of the best Godzilla films in terms of writing that I've seen in a very, very long time.
well, the first time I watched it in theaters, me and my brother went to go see it, and the ending. I mean, it got me tear jerking,
Yeah.
but it was the ending when because I didn't see it because it happened in a split second. But when it blows up the plane in his mouth, I was like, my
Hmm.
jaw literally dropped. I was like, and I turned to my brother. He was still paying attention. My jaw dropped, and then is floating down. I was like, the hell, he survived. And
That's a thing because like I watch reactions to that film, and sometimes I'm amazed that people catch on so fast. Like they say, "Oh, he ejected," but I thought that was just like the top of the plane.
that's what I thought too.
So I was like you. I was like, "Oh wow, he really did go through with it. He kamikaze that motherfucker."
Oh
And
yeah,
then you realize that his mechanic like looked out for him. I was like, "That's such good story writing. I
oh
just
yeah.
love that."
And not only that, and here's a funny interest. The ending got me because is reading this note that the lady that was mad with him for
The
so long,
neighbor, yeah.
and he was like, "Huh?" And I was like, I'm sitting here thinking, what is going? And she is alive, And I'm sitting here thinking, that really got me. And in the original storyline, Yamazaki, she was literally dead.
Yeah.
But he changed it at the very last moment and was like, "We'll put it that in." Honestly, yeah, I don't. I would think it still would have done well and still won the Oscar, but if it hadn't been for him changing that ending to where she was alive, I don't know, man. I mean that. Ooh,
Well, it makes it kind of hard to believe because obviously the power of that wave of from the blast from the atomic
yeah,
breath, but one thing I did really like also is the neck, and so a lot of people who aren't familiar with Godzilla, they're like, "What is that on her neck?" And then I go through their comments. I'm like, "Well, I have to explain like what that is," which again leads me to the idea that I wish or hope that Biollante would be in the mix because that would kind of coincide with her having the radiation inside her and stuff like that. But I have no idea what he's going to do for minus zero.
and
'Cause
neither I, because everybody's been dissecting that
yeah,
poster. Like, I see it's going to represent King Ghidorah. I see Hedorah. I see Mothra. You
yeah,
know, the way I see it is that whoever he decides to put in this film, I'll be happy no matter what because it could either be an original Toho monster, it could be a Toho monster that we hadn't seen in a while,
and
or
Gears.
or like a new monster. And
Mhm.
honestly, he can go in any direction he wanted to. Because honestly, he wants to do Hedorah. He wants to bring back Hedorah, which, in a way, I could see that. Honestly, if the story's done right, because in a way they kind of did Hedorah dirty in Final Wars, considering the fact that you only see him for a few seconds, get blown out of the water, get stabbed in the eye by Ebra, and he's done like that. And you see like extra in the like the
Well,
credit.
the biggest issues for me with Hedor is just the look. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous look. I just nothing terrifying about it. Now the movie itself is terrifying because of what it can do, and
Yeah.
it's actually a very dark Godzilla film, despite Godzilla being the hero. But I agree. I mean, I think that the way that they designed Godzilla in minus one was really good. So I don't have any hesitation about how he would make Hedorah look in this universe.
Oh yeah.
The other thing is, though, to get back to Daimajin, is that
Yeah.
seeing how Yamazaki has done this with Godzilla, even if Gamera never shows up in the third film, or if they even do it, would you like to see Yamazaki maybe take on a new trilogy with Daimajin because of his story writing?
Yeah, actually I would. And I mean he can make him more like when he transforms, make him more menacing. I mean, make him
Yeah,
more evil looking, even though he's not evil, but can be more evil. I mean, Daimajin is a very unique character, and we have come close to seeing a Godzilla versus Daimajin because in a Dark Horse comic of Godzilla, Godzilla fights this statue that almost looks like Daimajin, but it's a little bit different. It's got horns on its helmet that's kind of like that, and its face is more goblin-like in a way. It's got
yeah,
tusk and all that, but it was interesting. It could rebuild itself like Daimajin, so that's kind of the closest we've gotten to a Godzilla versus Daimajin. But yeah, I would love to see Yamazaki do his take on Daimajin.
I agree. Overall, what do you think the legacy of Daimajin will be in terms of popularity or just in kaiju, kaiju land fantasy?
I think his legacy is that he was a for a individual that started three films in the same year, which I think that mm, hasn't been done in a long. Well, I don't think it's been done since that time period where you have a trilogy that is back to back to back. And for its design, how he presented himself in the film, the way he killed each of the bad emperors, whether it was the spike in his head through the other dude, setting the other dude on fire in the lake, or using his sword to stab him, he will stand until the test of time, whether he has a good cult following or not. I think he is a good character. I mean, they have reused him through the years, whether it was in that TV show or that Guardians movie. I
Hmm.
think I think maybe whether we're still in our lifetime or not, I think they will eventually redo them. Maybe. But if they do, it may be past our lifetime. But all in all, I think he was a good character. I think they did a good job with the character. I liked the storyline. And that's pretty much all I have.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say, like, again, he is kind of overlooked a lot with just people in general and even kaiju fans. But that's the good thing about everything that's going on now with Legendary and what's going on with Toho and now with Minus One is that, again, we're kind of getting the spotlight back on kaiju films and monsters and giant monsters like that. Cloverfield is doing its part. But eventually, Dai will probably get their heads out of their asses and start trying to rework some of these classic creatures they have, like Gamera and Daimajin, and get them back on. Even if it's just a one-off, just get them back out there. Let's see what happens with people, because we do, as you said, there is a desire and a consumption from us to want to see this stuff, and we are big fans of it and continue to talk about them like we are now. So I think his legacy is intact, with even with the three films and all that. You're not a YouTube person, but do you have any content you're going to be doing any kind of soon, like any unboxings or anything like that?
Oh Lord. I know I have a new Haya figure coming this month. I don't know when it's supposed to be here in this month. I got Skila from
Oh,
New
Monsterverse.
Emperor. Yeah, Monsterverse Skila. So that's coming to Haya. I was like, I can't pass it up. I'm gonna go ahead and get that. I still need to get SH Monster Arts King Ghidorah to go with the Godzilla versus Gigan line that I have. And I was gonna get Mega Gearus on SH Monster Arts, but right now it's sold out right now. So there's a few figures that I want to get, but it's like I just need to kind of.
Slow down.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, I ordered the pre-order of Haya's G2000, so I'll be getting that sometime when it gets released. But that's
And I
really what I
did,
got.
and I just remembered I did pre-order off the Godzilla website. I got, and of course, it won't come out until next year, so I got a long time to wait. But it's Tiamat. I got the Haya Tiamat
Oh wow!
pre-ordered. So
I'll have to look at that. That was a cool creature for sure. Did they ever make a figurine of Daimajin?
I think they did, but I had to. Matter of fact, I've looked it up. And they do have a Daimajin figure. It's not in the best quality, but it's kind of like one of those Bandai figures.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a. Speaking of Tiamat, there's a Tiamat statue. You know the Hall of Fame statues that they produce. There's
Hmm.
a Tiamat one that I have my eye on. It's not too bad. It price wise, but I'm just like, do I want to get it? Do I want to hold off? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me, man. It's been a pleasure to talk to you about this particular kaiju. It's always fun to do these spotlights. And again, for the rest of you watching this, let us know in the comments, what do you think about this franchise, this particular kaiju? Do you want to see more films from them on this, or are you just satisfied with what they've already put out? But let us know your thoughts. Hit the like and subscribe. We appreciate all the support here at Metal Town Radio Podcast. And we'll see you next time. Take yourself and take care.
You see me for you